Wendy, I got bad news.
Oh, no.
There will not be a white Christmas. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
There will be the warmest Christmas in your lifetime coming up. 1,900 records, I think, are being eclipsed by this warm spell.
Well, hey, if we can wear shorts on Christmas Day, I'm okay with that.
You can wear shorts on Christmas Day.
I'll be okay with that.
I don't know if you can go out surfing, but you can undoubtedly wear shorts. But anyhow, they were setting records, and it doesn't look like it's going to... it backed off a little, but the heat wave's coming back on us, and of course those resorts in the Northeast are getting slammed. I mean, there's not going to be any snow for skiing.
I couldn't believe it was 70 degrees night before last in the evening, and I'm out taking a walk, and there's Christmas lights up, and it's balmy 70 degrees.
Yeah, I was out, you know, at this restaurant, and here comes this mother. She's wearing a T-shirt and shorts, and I'm thinking, come on, it's you know, it's almost Christmas. Well, anyhow, it's not about Islam, it's about security. And that was Donald Trump's message to America last night's Republican debate, where he defended his idea to block all Muslim refugees. In response, Jeb Bush blasted Donald, calling him a chaos candidate.
And while Bush targeted Trump throughout the evening, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio spent their time pummeling each other. CBN's David Brody has the scorecard from this heavyweight bout in Vegas.
This debate was not without some news, and leave it to Donald Trump to deliver it.
Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am. I'll be honest. I really am. I mean, people have been putting me to traction. I really am.
I can applaud.
Trump and Ted Cruz came into this debate in the number 1 and 2 slots. But it was Jeb Bush, not Cruz, who wanted to tangle with Trump. It started at the outset when Trump defended his strict policies on immigration and temporarily banning Muslims from America.
We're talking about security. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about security.
Cruz tried to show how his approach differed from Trump's Muslim statement without insulting him.
I understand why Donald made that proposal. I introduced legislation in the Senate that I believe is more narrowly focused at the actual threat, which is radical Islamic terrorism. And what my legislation would do is suspend all refugees for 3 years from countries where ISIS or al-Qaeda control substantial territory.
But while Cruz went easy on Trump, Jeb Bush did not.
And if we're going to ban all Muslims, how are we going to get them to be part of a coalition to destroy ISIS? So Donald, you know, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate, and he'd be a chaos president.
And Bush also took issue when Trump said the following about taking out the family members of ISIS.
They may not care much about their lives, but they do care, believe it or not, about their families' lives.
The idea that that is a solution to this is just crazy.
We need a toughness. We need strength. We're not respected as a nation anymore.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
With Jeb's attitude, we will never be great again. That I can tell you.
Beyond the squabbling, one of the big storylines was the differences between Cruz and Marco Rubio. Despite Trump's dominance, both campaigns see each other as their main rival. So disagreements centered on plenty of topics, such as immigration.
He was fighting to grant amnesty and not to secure the border. I was fighting to secure the border.
Ted Cruz supported a 500% increase in the number of H-1B visas, the guest workers that are allowed into this country, and Ted supports doubling the number of green cards.
They also showed a split on whether to take out bad dictators around the world.
Assad is a bad man. Gaddafi was a bad man. Mubarak had a terrible human rights record, but they were assisting us, at least Gaddafi and Mubarak, in fighting radical Islamic terrorism.
But anti-American dictators like Assad, who helped Hezbollah, who helped get those IEDs into Iraq, if they go, I will not shed a tear.
As for Ben Carson, he's seen his poll numbers drop substantially over the last few weeks. Voters seem to question his foreign policy chops and nice guy demeanor in standing up against a vicious enemy like ISIS. Carson explained how he would go after them.
The job of the President of the United States is to protect the people of this country and to do what is necessary in order to get it done.
This is the last debate for 2015. We will all reconvene in mid-January, about a month from now, when the Republicans will gather in Charleston, South Carolina. So where do we stand right now? Well, Donald Trump in the pole position, Ted Cruz nipping at his heels, Marco Rubio a player still, and Ben Carson just hoping to survive. The Iowa caucus voting begins February 1st. David Brody, CBN News in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And they've got some good, the thing of it is, they've got some really good candidates, and it's a shame they're chopping each other up, because if all of them were in the government, it would be a good thing. The question of who's going to be number one, but nevertheless, I think they would. I mean, you can see one is Surgeon General, you can see one is head of HHS, you can see various ones. They'd make a fantastic team all together.
I watched the whole thing last night because I'm really still trying to decide, because there are a lot of good candidates, and I thought Rubio and Cruz had a really strong night. But Trump is still, they're still saying that he's the winner.
You know, one of the thing of it is, this is the biggest corporation on the face of the earth. It has a huge budget. And it isn't just who has the best sound bites in a 60-minute debate. It's got to be who has got the capability of managing, putting in place the people, firing the ones that aren't any good, making tough decisions day after day after day. That's what we're looking for in a president. We've had one with no experience in the last few years, and we have paid the price. Well, in other news, it was terrorism by email as fears of ISIS ran high in Los Angeles. It shut down its entire school system after a digital threat. Ephraim Graham has more on that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, the nation's two largest school systems received identical threats of a large-scale attack Tuesday. Los Angeles responded by shutting down all its schools. New York dismissed the email and held classes. Hoax or not, experts say this shows the ability of terrorists to create the effect of terror without having ever to commit any violence. Caitlin Burke has the story.
Two coasts, two threats, two different responses. Both New York City and Los Angeles public schools received an email threat Tuesday, which spoke of a large-scale jihadi attack using guns, bombs, and nerve gas. In an extremely rare move, Los Angeles quickly shut down every school in the city, canceling class for at least 650,000 students.
I, as superintendent, am not going to take the chance with the life of a student.
New York City responded differently, both the mayor and police commissioner calling the email a hoax and determining that there was no real threat to school children.
NYPD Intelligence Division has been in touch with the FBI throughout the morning, assessing the situation, and has come to the conclusion that the threat that was made was not credible.
Authorities say the email is still being investigated, but as a hoax. It's believed to have originated overseas. In the threat, the name Allah is not capitalized, and no verses from the Quran were used. That, along with other factors, led to the determination that it was not a credible threat. CBN News terrorism expert Eric Stakelbeck says this is still a win for terrorism.
In the very least, this was a great dry run for terrorists because it shows the paranoia and the psychological terror, the confusion you can sow among the American people.
Los Angeles defended its decision to shut down schools, saying the top priority is to keep kids safe.
Some have used words that I think are probably inappropriate, like hoax and other things, whether it's criminal mischief, whether it's somebody testing vulnerabilities of multiple cities. We still do not know enough to say definitively. What we do know is that it will be safe for our children to return to school tomorrow.
Los Angeles is only a short distance away from San Bernardino, where 14 people were killed 2 weeks ago following a Christmas party. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Hard to say who made the right call, Pat.
I don't think so. I think they should have, the school superintendent, as I understand, made the call on his own authority. He should have gone up the ladder to the mayor and possibly even to the governor of the state of California. And they should have had all of the same resources that New York did, from the FBI, counterterrorism, et cetera. But you just can't have just some nutcase at a computer keyboard shutting down your schools. You just can't have that. Shutting down your subways, closing all the activities. If the terrorists can do that, they don't have to risk anything. I mean, an email doesn't cost anything, and they can send all kinds of emails, and here's a suspicious email. But somebody who knows better could have vetted that thing, and, well, it could have saved an awful lot of money and a lot of heartache in Los Angeles. Yes, taking care of little kids is a big deal, and you don't want to have them exposed to some nerve gas attack or something like that. But still, they overreacted. New York played it right. Ephraim?
Pat, French authorities have revoked the security passes of 70 Paris airport workers trying to neutralize the threat from potential terrorists. Security officials uncovered evidence those workers were radicalized Muslims. French security sources say the Islamic terrorists who were killed in a raid after the Paris attacks last month were plotting to strike Charles de Gaulle Airport. The Telegraph reports the passes that were revoked were for employees who had direct access to airplanes or baggage. Meanwhile, 2 terrorist suspects with possible ties to the Paris attacks have been arrested. Officials say the men were hiding at a migrant shelter in Austria. It is the end of an era at the Federal Reserve today, the Fed raising interest rates for the first time in nearly a decade. The lending rate has been at 0 for 7 years, with the goal of reviving an economy in chaos. Today's move is a sign the Fed believes the economy is strong enough to move ahead and that it wants to limit inflation down the road. Global stock markets were up today ahead of the hike. The Fed is widely expected to continue making gradual hikes in the lending rate leading forward to avoid shocking the economy. Pat?
Big mistake. The Fed overreacted. I mean, we've had years of this thing. It has been devastating to savers, devastating to retirees who count on interest payments to pay their monthly bills. It has put a flood of money into the economy that wasn't needed. I mean, the whole thing, well, it hadn't hurt anything, I guess, but it certainly has left them in a condition where they can't come back from it. They've just gone up 1/4 of a point on the lending rate, which is hardly significant. And the markets knew it was coming, so the stock market went up. But the truth is that when they get back to normal, if they bring the interest rates up to 2 or 3%, and that's passed through to the debt on our various securities from the government, the federal budget is going to be in a mess. And I think President Obama wanted to keep those rates low as long as he could because it makes him look halfway good. But I tell you, it's going to be a blow. If they brought them up to 4 or 5%, which is more than like it's what it used to be, the amount of interest on the federal debt is going to be astronomical, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to kill every other government program. They won't have any money for anything. Ephraim?
Pat, congressional leaders have reached a budget agreement on tax cuts and spending for 2016. Most notably, the bipartisan package extends dozens of tax breaks for businesses and families. But the deal does not strip Planned Parenthood of federal funds, and it does not fix the deficit. But some conservatives will be happy because it ends a 4-decade ban on U.S. oil exports, and it undercuts new Obamacare taxes. The measure also reforms the visa waiver program that's led to fears of terrorist access. The White House has indicated President Obama will likely sign the final measure. Congress also passed a bill to prevent a government shutdown through next Tuesday, giving lawmakers some time to finish the long-term spending plan. Pat?
Well, they got it through. I'm glad to see that that ban on oil exports was totally counterproductive. I mean, we're producing so much oil now, there's a glut of the stuff, and producers are going bankrupt by the hundreds all across the country. So the idea of we can now export our crude to other markets where the prices are higher is a good move. We put it in as an emergency years and years ago, because we thought we had serious shortages of domestic production. We don't have shortages anymore. So by all means, take the ban off. But the Democrats asked for a pound of flesh. Well, you've got to spend some more money on solar, and you've got to do something on biomass, and you've got to have all these renewables. So we've got wind tunnels and everything else to waste money on in order to balance out the fact we're giving a break to the producers of oil.